It's been a minute. Glad to have you here. We're going to try this in video. It's been since about, I want to say February of this year. So I'm going to kind of get you updated on what's been going on with me and why I've not been around. And I've decided to go into starting to do the video podcast. So here we go. And this is what's been going on with Talking with Tam. In March, I've got all my notes. In March, exactly the date was March 20th, I had just finished up making a comment in our Bible class, and I decided I was not feeling 100%. We got up, went to the restroom, and at that point I realized, okay, this indigestion is a situation. So I went to the car, FaceTimed my mom and my sisters, asking, is anybody out there? Can you talk to me? And my mom said she could, so she FaceTimed with me. And I started telling her what was going on. And then the other sisters chimed in and said it's probably just from what I'd eaten that for lunch. So at lunch, I'd been to Taco Bell. I'd gotten a protein bowl. So, it was healthy. It was supposed to be healthy. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just really is terrible indigestion. So my husband comes out to the car. He says, do you want to go to the hospital? I go, no, let's just go. I don't drink carbonated drinks. Let's just go get like a Sprite or something like that and see if the carbonation will help with the indigestion. So we did. Came home and I went straight to bed and didn't have much of an appetite or anything like that. And I have a bed that elevates. It's something that we'd gotten back in October. So I was able to elevate the head and didn't get to sleep till like 1 a.m, right? Yeah. And then get up the next morning and I'm like, I'm just so tired. And I had made note that the week before was the time change and I've been sluggish and this kind of thing. So go to work, get with my first patient. But before I go to get my first patient, I tell Deb, that is the front desk, she's amazing. Anyway, I tell Deb, hey, listen, I'm a little sluggish today. Didn't sleep well last night. Had like horrible indigestion. She goes, Tamara, I think we need to call the local clinic. I said, all right, go ahead. So I go get my first patient. We start working. It's about 15, 25 minutes, somewhere in there. And Deb comes, gets me and says, the nurse is on line such and such. She wants to talk to you. So I pick up the phone. I excuse myself from the patient. Have another therapist watching him for me. And I start talking to the nurse, and she lets me know, we think you need to go to the ER. I'm like, okay. So I tell Deb they're wanting me to go to the ER, and she says, good. And I'm like, okay, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm going to take myself. No, you're not. You're not taking yourself. I'm taking you, is what Deb tells me. So we get to the local hospital where they rush me in, so to speak, and then they start running all these, doing the vitals, doing this, doing that. And then they come in and take blood, and that's when they find that my troponin was elevated. It was elevated to about, 300 to 400. So not out the roof, but he looks at me, he goes, you've had a heart attack. And I go, okay. And we're sending you on down to Asheville. That's when it gets to be a blur, because I think your brain just kind of shuts down a little bit, like but you don't know. And that's kind of what happened. So they get me in the ambulance, my first ambulance ride. I'm telling my boss, hey, I'll be back. My husband had already told him, there's some heart stuff going on. I don't know that he told him I'd had a heart attack. That's what I don't know, if that was actually said, but there's some stuff. Then anyway, I get in the ambulance, go for the ride. One thing that I found out is people do not pull over. That was the most scary part. And this young man, he's, talking to me and doing what all they do in the ambulance. And he goes, would you like something for some anxiety? And I'm like, I just don't know. And he goes, and he tells me the medicine. That's what I was going to give you. That's what we can give you. And I go, yeah, let's just do it. Let's go ahead. Because I knew I had, the ambulance ride. And on regular driving, it's an hour away. So, and it was going to be a bumpy ride. And I was stressed out about the people not pulling over and what was going on and all that kind of stuff. So I get down there. And they take you in, and then they start running more tests. And we're going to fast forward through some of this because, honestly, I know some of it, but I don't remember it all. Like I said, you kind of just... So my EKG was good. Like I said, my troponin, it was elevated. And they decided to do heart catheterization the next day. And that was on the 22nd. While we're in there, so the doctor, my husband's name is Lars. And so the cardiologist starts talking about Lars, the drummer from Metallica, and he was just going on, which actually probably helped with some of my nervousness of the whole situation. But over the years, when I treated patients and you talked about a heart cath, I was used to people going through the groin for the heart cath. That's not what they did. They went through my wrist. And I honestly did not know that. So if you look on here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's this little spot right here, and that's where they did my heart catheterization. So you're laying there, they're doing the heart catheterization, and he's like, well, Tam, and he's going on and on and on, and, your arteries look beautiful, this looks beautiful, that looks beautiful. And then he comes over to my right side. He starts following something, and it was a big deal, I guess, from what I can remember of it. And he goes, well, here we are. He found it. And it's what they call a SCAD. It's a spontaneous coronary artery dissection. I still have to look at that, even though I'm 3 months into this. So that's what had happened. So you ask, Tam, what does that mean? Well, what happens, and I'm going to give you the definition, is the inner layer of the coronary artery splits. And then you start having this pooling of blood and all this wonderful stuff, right? And I had had a heart attack. Here's the other thing. A lot of doctors show up when they find out you've had a SCAD, right? All the interns and everybody probably, it was it was a little overwhelming at first because sometimes you had as many as 8 to 10 doctors in the room with you. That's not an exaggeration. And so they told me, I said, when did this heart attack happen? They said most likely the week before, because the other cardiologist that did my heart cath, he said that where the SCAD had happened had already started healing. So that was a good thing, but there had been damage to part of my heart. So what they call the fraction and all these things, it was not up to what it needed to be. So we knew that I had had a heart attack, right, from the damage. And he even told me there still could be some more damage as the days went on, because it had happened. This is what it was explained to me. So let me share with you just a little bit about SCAD. It's not common. It's more common than they thought, but it's not as common. 1 to 4% of heart attacks are SCAD heart attacks. 25 to 35% of us survive. So you may not know that your loved one had died from a SCAD heart attack. It hits 90% women, 10% men. And of the heart attacks, this is another number they gave. A third of the heart attacks were of women. A third of the heart attacks, that means of all all the heart attacks, not just SCAD heart attacks, but a third of the heart attacks are from women with SCAD heart attacks, and 50 and younger. What you find with a lot of the women that have these heart attacks, one of the biggest ones is pregnancy, especially during pregnancy or post-pregnancy, okay? And then a lot of them are athletes. Like I watched one guy talk that he skied jumping out of helicopters and skiing what I call adrenaline junkies, athletes, triathlons, marathons, all, very athletic, very healthy. And this is a lot of the people that have them are them. And the other thing that they say is, it's just a lot. Like when you first start into this, you're like, okay, and then you join a group and you're learning from other people, and some people have multiple SCADs. Some of them end up in bypasses and all kinds of different things. So there can be a lot with that learning. It's a lot to take in. Even though I'm in healthcare, I do not remember ever working with a SCAD patient. One of my therapists believes that we did have one SCAD patient in the years that she and I've worked together. But yeah, it's so there was a lot of learning that I had to do with what was going on with me. I mean, I understood, heart damage and, all this kind of stuff. And then I went from one fluid pill to I'm on like five different pills. It was a big change. The first thing my son did was take me to get a pill box, AM and PM. And you're going through all that. So here's some of the things I wanted to share with you also that was going on at the same time. So when you're having these CT scans and they go, oh, and by the way, this is what we call incidentals. Incidentals, you have a tumor on your adrenal gland and you have a mass at T4 in the paraspinalis. So I'm like, okay. And so then you get more doctors. I had a primary doctor who moved, and I hadn't met my new primary doctor because my other primary doctor left in August, and it was going to be June of the following year. Well, needless to say, I got in sooner with that primary doctor. But you go from really, you had no doctors. I'd been through some stuff with gynecology, so I had my gynecologist, but I had no primary doctor, literally. And I went from, okay, now you get to go see your primary doctor. You're going to go to surgical oncology, and you have cardiology, right? So I bumped up to 4 doctors that I had to see. So when you come out of the hospital, you're trying to deal with all this new stuff you're learning about what's going on with yourself. And then you've got to go to all these doctor's appointments. You got to get things looked at, all that. And, fast forward, the month of April was basically going to doctors and getting everything checked. Thankfully, the tumor in the adrenal gland looks to be benign. It did not grow. So, that's kind of in a holding pattern. The mass they'd actually found they'd gone back to an old x-ray and there was a mass, but no one had ever told me I had a mass. No one mentioned the mass. And when I looked at the x-ray, because I had not seen the x-ray, I had x-rays done 5 years ago, I could see the mass. But nobody mentioned the mass at that time, and that's also benign. And after my initial CT scan in March, then I had some more done end of April, and everything's kind of in a holding pattern. So that will be more follow-ups. But that's kind of the other stuff that goes on. If I hadn't had the heart attack, I don't think I would have known about the tumor and the mass. So I'm thankful it's not cancerous. That's a good thing. So medications make you very thirsty. And if you remember in 2022, I had nodules on my vocal cords. One thing, so we'll go back to that in a minute. So I did want to share, so April is, you go get your hair done. I tell people this, the first appointment I made was with my hairstylist. I got in with him. But the very, very first appointment was my counselor. I had been in grief counseling since June of last year, and my counselor had been out on medical leave for a few months, and so I'd already kind of talked about getting back in with her, and then I had the heart attack. And one thing with SCAD is it's thought to be physical exertion, like an extreme physical exertion, or emotional stress. So those are the two things. Now, I just watched something with a group of doctors Friday night that there might be this percentage of, we don't know what it is that causes it. which seems to, so that's one thing with the SCAD heart attack, is learning that we're never going to know exactly what did it. Was it physical? Was it emotional? If you would have said something like in 21, when my brother died, my ex-mother-in-law, my stepdad, my stepsister, and multiple patients, and I would have said, okay, that makes sense. But as far as anything particular, there were stresses for sure, but I really would have thought it would have happened in 21. But there's a lot of thought patterns with my counselor on that situation and my doctors. So, here's the deal. I don't know, and they don't know. What we do know is where we have to go from here. So that's what we've been working on. The mental health, the physical health. It started with cardiac rehab on tax day, April 15th. That was probably the best thing I could have done. The doctor said, you're not going back to work, number one. Number two, you're going to start cardiac rehab. And number three, Tamara, you have to start living life. Because literally what happened, I got discharged around, I think it was the 23rd of March. So I'd been in the hospital 2 or 3 days. And the first month I spent literally sitting on the couch. Number one, I had no energy. It was all I could do. This is what I made myself do every single day, no matter what. When my husband got up, I got up. And I got ready for the day. So I got out of my PJs. I came down the stairs the first few weeks with his help, because I did not want to move my bedroom downstairs. Family had suggested it. I didn't want to. I took my time getting up and getting down. Getting up was harder. And then I would come downstairs. I would rest. And then I would put on some makeup, which back in the day I wouldn't have cared, but it's like I have to try to have what I would call my normal routine. Of course, the first week or so, he made breakfast. We had church friends and everybody bringing him dinner, so that was taking care of that. It was just a whole change for me. Because I was known as the go, go, go type of person, type A if you want to call it. And then I went from, I'm no longer going to work. And I'd worked for 34 years. And as of late, back in August, I went to 4 nines. So, I was used to some longer days and things like that. And now nothing whatsoever. And people ask, well, do people stay with you? One thing I know now for sure is that if you need help, you get help. But my husband stayed with me a lot, because at the beginning, I just couldn't people. And I don't mean that to sound rude, but I didn't watch television for a month. I would do more texting. People would talk to me, but it was told not to stress me out any, that kind of stuff. So I was pretty much just keeping calm and, doing word searches and games and, on the phone or reading and that kind of stuff. And another thing that helped me was social media. But again, I filtered that to more positive. I had to have positive. I could not have the negativity. That was just because it was too much. I just did not want to deal with it at that point. And I didn't want to watch television. Nothing. Then you go into the next month and you start, cardiac rehab. You're starting to feel better. And the first thing I started watching was the spring baking show, right? Where they compete. And I watched all 10 seasons. Literally, it took me a little over a month, but that is the only thing that I watched was the spring baking, because it was, they were cheerful. It was fun. It was competitive, but they weren't hateful. Some really fun characters and funny people. And I enjoyed it. It kind of was, it was positive, and it made me smile. So that's what I did the first month or 6 weeks. So then, you start getting into end of April into May. And I started getting out a little bit more, meaning I was going to church. I I tried to go grocery shopping with my husband one day, and it was very evident I couldn't do it. It was all I could do to get back to the car. And so, that was a big change. I had to do curbside. One good thing that came out of everything in our area, we would not have had curbside as soon as we did if it had not been for the pandemic. So I am thankful for curbside. And I felt guilty at first using curbside because I was like, I should be able to do this. That was the hardest part. If you saw me, you would say, well, she looks fine. She looks fine. And you don't have any clue until you would stay with me a little bit and realize how I would fatigue and, all that stuff. And that's what my counselor told me. She goes, Tamara, you realize when people look at you, they don't see this, right? And I go, yeah, that's one of the hardest things. Unless you were with me longer than so many minutes, then you would realize. So, it's okay. It was something that I had to adjust to, and I had to listen to my body. And the biggest thing is I must push through things because I didn't even know I'd had a heart attack. And I will tell you, the only thing that I know the week before was the time change on that Sunday. And I believe the Tuesday after, I remember walking with Deb. We usually walk a mile at the lunch break, and I got to lap 8, and I'm like, Deb, I am exhausted. This time change, I'm 55 years old. This time change is really doing a number on me. And then I remember being with the physical therapist that I work with. He's always there. And I said, Edson, I've got this piercing. I've had tinnitus for years, but it was so loud in my ears, I couldn't even think. And I don't know how else to describe it. It pierced so much so that I could not even concentrate. And it was a few minutes. I had to sit down, and I'm like, I just don't know. And it was right after lunch, and I was with a patient, or I just finished up with a patient, and then it finally subsided. I still to this day think that's the day that right there, I think I'm almost 100% sure I had my heart attack at work. And they'll ask you, were you nauseated? Were you sweating? Were you dizzy? Were you this? Were you that? And I'm like, I don't remember. I don't remember any of those things. What I do, if you ask me if I'm sweating, I'm menopausal. I'm postmenopausal. I'm menopausal, you guys. I have hot flashes. I'm not going to think twice about sweating. So, yeah. So then we get to, May was a little bit better, going to cardiac rehab. You can't believe you've been out, 2.5 months or so. And then we get to June, and my counselor and the PA look at me and they tell me, Tamara, you've got to get out and start doing more. And I'm like, here's the deal. I'm not working. So, I am not supposed to be out doing anything. I'm just trying to recoup. And they go, but this is part of your recouping. You've got to start being out with the humans is what I call it. So I'd gone to church, been doing curbside. And so finally, I believe it was towards the end of May, I may have finally tried the grocery store on my own. One good thing about that is you can't eat processed foods, so you're staying on the outside. So I really hadn't done the go down each aisle situation. So I could do the grocery shopping for the most part. And sometimes what I do, because you do eat fresh, you're going like every 2 days or every other day. So, it wasn't as hard to deal with it on that level. I still have not been through all of Walmart. Our local Walmart has changed, where everything is. And I tried to go in there a few weeks ago, and I couldn't. I went from one end to get the new microwave and to the other end to get the lettuce that my nephew, the company that he works with up in Pennsylvania, and he had told me, hey, we're now selling little leaf lettuce at Walmart. And I'm like, okay, I got to go get the lettuce. But I made it to those two places and nothing in between. But it's okay. It's, it's all changing. They go, oh, this is you're learning your new normal. And the new normal has gotten better. It definitely is better. But I still find, I'm on a weight limitation, weight limitation. I can only lift so many pounds right now. I still haven't been told what I'm going to top out at, but it looks like that's going to be a lifelong situation, possibly, from what I'm seeing and hearing. And I'm on sodium restrictions and this kind of stuff, and this specialist says this and this researcher says that. You're constantly, I said, my full-time job now is cardiac rehab Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My other part of that job is navigating the doctors and the doctor's appointments, and then also the educational part on everything, and educating your doctors and other people. I'm fortunate that the cardiologists that I have worked with SCAD patients, so that's a good thing. And I was just recently notified as of Friday that August I will be going to one of 8 SCAD specialists here in this country, and she's in Charlotte. So I'm very fortunate. I'm in Western North Carolina, and she has agreed. I'm going for like a second opinion because she is the SCAD specialist. So I'm very, very excited about getting to meet with her and kind of see what, medicines and her input of my overall situation. So that's been part of that. Getting ready to graduate from cardiac rehab next week. That will be July 5th. So they have been super. If you're ever given the opportunity, if something should happen, that you have a heart event or pulmonary event, I highly recommend getting in with the cardiac rehab. I am their first SCAD. Where I'm going, they agreed, number one, they agreed to take me. A lot of times the cardiac rehabs won't take a SCAD patient if they've not ever had one. But with the cardiologist and them working together on what to do with me and things like that, it's been great. It's been a really great experience, and I'm very thankful for that. Just things that, a couple things that I'll share this. A couple things that I did do is on June 6th, I go up a couple weeks before that. I'd been in counseling, and I knew I'm a big Winona Judd fan. And she had decided she was going to do a second event during the country music festival there in Nashville. And this was going to be in Franklin at the Franklin Theater. So I was in counseling on a Thursday, and it was supposed to end at 1 o'clock. Well, the opportunity to purchase the tickets to the fan club acoustic and Q&A session with Winona was supposed to go on sale starting at 1 o'clock. So I was having such a good session with my counselor. I said, you know what, it's okay. I'll go to the car and we'll see. Well, believe it or not, I did get tickets, and I was able to go see Winona. So that was a trip that typically we probably would have done in a day, like go there in a day, but we had to split it so that I wasn't sitting in the car too long because of, feet swelling and things like that. So we stopped at my mom's. I got to see my mom. I hadn't seen her since November when we went to Noah's Ark for my 55th birthday, because when I had come in March, and that was a weekend before my heart attack that I had gone back home to see my family, my mom was sick, so I did not get to go see her. So I finally got to see my mom, spend some time there, and then went on into Franklin and saw my youngest sister, and then went and saw Winona. That was 295 fans. Had an absolutely wonderful time. It was hot, but I only stood for 30 minutes. So, because that's the other thing, I can't get hot or too cold. Those are the two things they told me. So anyway, I got to see Winona. Got to be out with a crowd of 295 people. That was good for me to do. Went out to dinner. It was, that was at Puckett's there in Franklin. Got to find a healthy meal. Finding healthy meals eating out is a situation. When you're on a limited salt intake, you don't want to make them mad, but you're like, okay, can you make sure don't add any salt? And some of the stuff is pre-prepped, and I know that. So I try to choose things that's a little bit easier to deal with, but I definitely have to watch salt intake right now while my heart is healing. So in July, I will have an echocardiogram, and we'll know to what extent my heart is healed. I'm prayerful for 100% healed, that would be good. I have been told it will take me a good year to completely recoup from the SCAD. And then we're kind of treated a certain way in that once a SCAD, you have to be treated as if it could be happen again. So there will be modifications and recommendations on what, like I will never get to go on a roller coaster, which is fine with me. No competitive sports, so like boxing and all that is out. There's, things like that. Let's see, I won't be lifting furniture anymore. Probably won't get to help my husband much with the construction stuff. I'll be limited because of what I can lift. But again, we'll see what the cardiologist, that's a SCAD expert, we'll see what she says this August. It's because of the physical stress, they don't want you putting that kind of physical stress. I kind of compare it to lifting a car. You don't want to lift a car. You don't want to lift something extremely heavy. And prior to my heart attack, I was working out. Some of you know I was trying to go to spin class. That was hit and miss. Some yoga, working out with weights. I was walking. I was doing all that kind of stuff. So, I keep saying to cardiology, when do I get to go back to the gym? I get to walk, but I don't get to work out yet. So I'm hoping when I graduate next week that they might let me start, kind of back to my routine with my limited weights. And then what I've been told from others is that you'll do low weights, high reps, which is great for me, especially being menopausal. As a menopausal woman, that's exactly what we need. We need the muscles, and we want to, I just want to get my strength back. And cardiac rehab's definitely helped, though. It's made a big, big difference mentally and physically. So, okay. That's pretty much sums up what has been going on the last 3 months with me. One thing that I learned during all this, my grandmother, when she was getting ready to retire, she said, Tammy Sue, we've got to have hobbies. Well, guess who didn't have a hobby? One thing that I had been doing is my friend Avril taught fused glass classes. So I had been in fused glass, classes and had done that with her. Second week after my heart attack, or into the third week, I can't remember. I did go to a fused class. And that was good. I enjoyed it, and I was going to show you a couple of my items that I've made over the last 3 months, but that was very helpful. And the group of ladies, just, there was like 4 of us plus Avril, got to catch up with them and kind of do the social thing, because like I said, I hadn't really been out with people at that point. I was on the down low, so it was good to do my fused glass. But yeah, hobbies are a big thing. Especially when you're trying to recoup from something. So it's been a journey for sure. If you ask me, what have you learned from all this? Number one, I am not in control. I thought I knew that, but God is definitely in control. I am very, very, very thankful that I have more time here with my family. And my kids, I think my kids were at the hospital and they live in different directions, but everybody got to the hospital within 3 to 4 hours of knowing what had happened to me. And that, that meant the world to me. They just came in, and I tell you, I have some really great kids. That's all I can say. I've got an absolutely fabulous husband who has put up with me over the years, and I've put up with him too. But just really, I tell people, this is what I told him when he goes, Amber, you've already seen Winona. We saw her a few years ago. We saw her in 2018. And I go, I know, but this is like it's 295 people. She's doing Q&A, this and that. I said, this would be good for me. And, I always tell people Winona Judd and I would be best friends if we ever could hang out together. And then I go to my husband, I go, you do realize I've had a rare heart attack, don't you? that is true. I have had a rare heart attack, but I don't take for granted the blessings that I have. Um, I'm very, very, very thankful. So that has changed how I look at things. I don't know that I'll ever, I, I will not be the same. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Things have changed with my body. When people say something to me, about my health, I'm like, I am a very healthy, overweight person, and people have a hard time with that. They do. I'm like, my arteries are good. I'm not diabetic. They told me my A1C was fabulous. He told me at the time of the heart catheterization, great. They looked to see if I had FMR, and my carotid artery and the renal arteries, great. So I'm very thankful. Do I have some other things going on the side? Yes, but it's at this point is all benign. So I'm in hopes of no growth, no cancer, just everything's, at bay, and just give my heart time to completely heal and then build up my strength and everything. So it's, it's been a journey, and this journey will continue. And how I look at things differently, trying to be more positive. The good news is one of my medications they were able to cut in half, and that's definitely helped with having a little bit more energy. So that's been good. They let me take medicines at night. Part of them, that's, you're just the number one thing for us with SCAD is listen to your body. Number one, listen to your body. And I've had, probably since I've been home and everything that's happened and the story got out about me, I've had 5 to 6 women come to me that they went to the doctor because they had heard what had happened to me, and they did not ignore the signs that were happening to them. And that's what I would tell you to do, especially when you go to the ER and they tell you it's just anxiety. I would make sure they check your levels and maybe stay there a little bit longer to see what your levels are, to make sure you didn't have a heart attack or not in the process of having a heart attack. I'm very thankful for the ER doctor that I had that day, and that's exactly what he did, and didn't send me home, because that has been a game changer in my recovery. I have heard stories where women, especially women, because the men sometimes are a little bit different in what happens with them, but especially with the women, that a lot of times they're sent home. So I'm very, very thankful for our local ER and the ER doctor that took care of me and that team. It was a game changer for me. So that is it for today. I thank you for joining me and letting you share my journey of having a SCAD heart attack over the last 3.5 months, what kind of has been going on with me. A lot of times people are wanting to talk about it. It's been hard for me to talk about. What I mean is it's stressful, and I can feel it. When my brother died, I could tell you when I was having anxiety. I could feel it here. But this is different. That's the other thing. SCAD, people that have had SCAD heart attacks, we have the pains, right? We have chest pains. We have this residual. Sometimes it can last up to 2 more years, is what I've been told. Hopefully within a year it's calmed down, and it has calmed down. It is better with the medication and all the different things that I'm doing to help with anxiety. Someone asked me, let me put it this way. I saw my chart. You go in the patient portal, and the chart says morbidly obese, anxiety, right? 2 things, which I've always, how many years I've been overweight now. And I tell people this, when I saw morbidly obese, I'm like, I have done everything. I honestly have, right? That did not upset me. Do I like that it's on there? No, especially after having a heart attack, getting more healthy, but I'm doing everything. No sugar, low sodium. I'm very hypersensitive to salt, so my sodium intake is even lower than most heart patients, right? But what got me was the anxiety diagnosis. That is the first time I'd ever seen the anxiety diagnosis. And of course, we know I have anxiety, but no one's put a name to it on me. And people ask me, why did that bother you? And I'll tell you why. It's because in society, especially as a female, they will tell you, you need to get a grip. You need to get a handle on it, Tamara. What I will tell you about a SCAD heart attack, yes, anxiety may be part of it, emotional stress. What has been described to me is when you literally die of a broken heart. So it's similar to that, right? And you look at the different things, and I'm not going to share everything that's happened over the years with me, but it's an accumulation of things plus the other stressors that happen in your everyday life. And so do we know for sure what did what? No. But having that diagnosis as anxiety and people telling you, well, you should have gotten a better handle. No, that's not what... I agree to a certain degree, but anxiety, if you go see Inside Out 2, you'll understand. I suggest you go see that movie. It really is part of our makeup. Some of us have more anxiety than others, but it is part of our emotionals. Anxiety is definitely part of my makeup, so to speak. So with counseling, it has improved greatly. And I appreciate having that help to deal with it. And I'd already been dealing with it for almost a year. I've been in counseling since July. But if someone tells me this, I had someone tell me this shortly after my heart attack. Well, some things happen for a reason. No, I don't like that saying. And I told my counselor that, and she goes, what? I agree. Things happen, and hopefully we learn for it, but I don't think this happened for a reason, per se. Okay, I don't like that. I don't like it. I think it should be banned, especially after telling someone after, you've gone through something like what I've gone through. I do hope to learn from this so that I can, help others. That's a big thing, and have a greater appreciation. So I thank you for joining me. If you've made it this long, please catch up with me next time. We're going to be changing up some of the format here, but I thought before I did that, I would come here with my story, because a lot of people over the days and weeks to come are going to be seeing more of me and asking me, so it might be easier for me to let you come to this and hear my story of my SCAD heart attack. So take care, and I hope you have a great one. Bye-bye.